Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're cutting straight to the chase on something really fundamental for any business trying to make sense of the online world: social media monitoring. Think of this as your shortcut, maybe, to truly understanding your brand's digital pulse. Without getting totally overwhelmed by all the noise out there, we're going to pull back the curtain a bit on how you can go beyond just, well, posting and reacting. It's about proactively listening and really strategizing.
Yeah, and I think what really nails it from the source material we looked at is that analogy.
The party one.
Exactly. Imagine you're at a party, right? And you see people across the room whispering, maybe looking your way. Wouldn't you kind of want to know what they're saying?
Absolutely. It would drive me crazy not knowing.
Well, in business, you have that exact same chance online. But the amazing thing is the internet doesn't really whisper. It broadcasts. And if you know how to tune in properly, you can hear pretty much everything.
That analogy really does set the stage perfectly.
Right. Because our mission today for this deep dive is to explore exactly how the right kind of social media monitoring lets your business know precisely what your customers, your competitors, and the whole community are saying about your brand online. We're going to distill some really actionable insights. This comes from a fantastic detailed article in Crespo AI's digital library. It's packed with strategies you can actually use, to turn listening into real business growth.
Okay, so let's unpack this a bit then.
Yeah.
Because I think for a lot of entrepreneurs, maybe small business owners listening, social media monitoring might still sound like, I don't know, a buzzword. Or maybe they just think it's about tracking likes and how many followers you have. But why is it so crucial today? The online world feels noisier than ever. It's got to be more than just those vanity metrics, right?
Oh, absolutely. That's a really common misconception, and it's critical we address it right up front. The fundamental shift we're talking about isn't just about being on social media anymore. It's about deeply listening on social media. It's this move from just having a passive presence where you might post your content and then just cross your fingers and hope for the best, to a position of active intelligence gathering.
Active intelligence gathering. Okay.
Yeah, think of it like becoming a genuine, intentional listener in a world that's just constantly talking. The core idea here is really listening beyond the likes. Those surface level numbers, the likes, the shares, they give you volume, maybe.
Yeah.
But they don't give you context. They don't tell you why.
Right, no depth.
Exactly. Modern monitoring tools, though, they're incredibly sophisticated now. They let a business truly hear the nuanced conversations happening around them, not just seeing superficial engagement numbers. It's about getting down to the granular details of what people genuinely feel, what problems they might be running into, and frankly, what they really desire.
Okay, so if we're talking about really hearing what's going on, what kinds of conversations or data points are these modern tools actually tracking? Because, for a busy founder or maybe a small team, the sheer volume of chatter online it can feel completely overwhelming. How do these tools help filter that down into something you can actually use?
That's a fantastic question. And the effectiveness really comes from their ability to focus on very specific strategic data points. It's not just opening a fire hose of information. It's more like a targeted stream, much more manageable. So firstly, these tools meticulously track brand names and any relevant keywords. This is absolutely fundamental because it captures not just the direct mentions, where someone tags your official handle or uses your exact brand name.
Right, the obvious stuff.
Exactly. But it also picks up on the indirect discussions. Let's say someone's talking about a problem that your product happens to solve, or maybe a solution you offer. Even if they don't mention your brand name explicitly, a smart monitoring tool can pick up on those related keywords, those phrases.
Ah, okay. So it's smarter than just looking at your brand name.
Much smarter. And this means you're not missing out on those really crucial conversations that might be happening in less obvious places. Maybe it's a niche Reddit forum or a private Facebook group, places where people often have those more authentic, unfiltered conversations.
That makes sense. It's like casting a much wider net then, capturing the intent behind the conversation. Even if your name isn't dropped directly, that's a huge step up from just checking your notifications feed.
It really is. And, closely related to understanding your own brand perception is getting a significant edge by monitoring your competitors.
Ah, yes. Keeping tabs on the competition.
Right. But again, this isn't just about seeing what they're posting on their own channels. You can do that easily enough just by following them. The real gold is understanding what other people are saying about your competitors.
Okay, so customer feedback on their stuff.
Exactly. What are their customers praising? What common frustrations keep popping up in discussions about them? This gives you invaluable competitive intelligence. You can learn from their successes, see what's resonating with their audience, what messages are landing, and maybe even more importantly, you learn from their missteps.
Where are they dropping the ball?
Precisely. What are their service gaps? Where are customers feeling let down? This lets you position your own brand, your product, your service as the clear solution to those very problems. And then beyond your brand and your competitors, these tools are also excellent for spotting broader industry trends.
Okay, like seeing what's coming next.
Sort of, yeah. Social media often acts as this early indicator, an early warning system for new ideas, for shifts in consumer behavior, maybe emerging market directions. By monitoring relevant industry terms or popular hashtags, even just the language people are using when they talk about your sector, you can spot these shifts sometimes long before they hit the mainstream media or show up in traditional market research.
Wow. So you could potentially identify a new customer interest, or maybe a change in how people want things delivered way before your competitors catch on.
That's the goal. And that kind of foresight, it's incredibly powerful. It can inform your product development pipeline, your marketing campaigns, your entire business strategy, really.
That's fascinating. So it's not just about the what's being said now, but also maybe what's bubbling up for the future.
Hmm.
And then you mentioned sentiment analysis. That sounds like it gets into the real nuances, the feelings behind the words. How exactly does that work? Is it reliable?
It does get nuanced, and that's where a lot of the qualitative value comes in. It's a truly advanced capability. Emotional tone or sentiment analysis, this moves beyond just what words are being used to understanding how they're being said, what's the underlying feeling. Is the sentiment behind mentions of your brand generally positive? Are people excited? Or is it negative? Are they frustrated, angry, or maybe just neutral, informational?
Okay, but language is tricky, right?
Hmm.
Sarcasm, jokes. How does a tool figure that out?
You're right, it is tricky. And it's not perfect, let's be clear. Things like sarcasm, cultural context, different ways people phrase things. It makes it a sophisticated challenge. It requires pretty advanced AI, specifically natural language processing or NLP, to try and decipher that emotional tone accurately. But when it's done well, understanding this emotional context is crucial. It provides a qualitative insight that raw numbers, likes, shares, mention volume simply can't give you. It tells you not just that people are talking, but how they actually feel when they talk about you, your products, your service.
That feels like a much deeper level of understanding.
It is. So, to connect all this back to the bigger picture for you, our listener, in this world we live in, just inundated with information, where every click, every comment adds to this ever-growing mountain of data. Social media monitoring isn't just some optional nice to have anymore. Not for any business aiming for smart, sustainable growth. It's become a critical, I'd say, indispensable tool. It helps you cut through all that noise, all that static, and get relevant, real-time feedback that can directly impact your strategic decisions. It's about shifting from being reactive to being proactive, using actual real-world conversations to guide your path forward. It helps ensure that every move you make, every dollar you spend, is ideally backed by genuine market insight, not just guesswork.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting for me, thinking like a founder.
Yeah.
Because it sounds like this stuff goes way beyond just the marketing department or, the customer service team. It feels like it touches everything. Product development, overall strategy. Am I getting that right? So what specific doors does this kind of deep listening, this more nuanced approach, really open up for our businesses?
You are absolutely getting that right. It really does permeate every facet of a truly customer-centric business model. It's definitely not just a marketing function or just a support function. I think one of the most immediate and maybe most profound benefits is gaining this unparalleled understanding of how customers truly feel about your product or your service.
Other than surveys.
Yeah, think about traditional feedback methods, right? Surveys, focus groups, they're valuable, don't get me wrong. But they're often structured. Customers know they're being asked for feedback, which can sometimes influence their answers. Social media, on the other hand, it often provides completely unfiltered insight. It's where people express genuine, unvarnished opinions, raw, immediate reactions, the good, the bad, the ugly, the indifferent. And often, they do it without the filter of a formal feedback request. Imagine just seeing organically dozens of customers spontaneously raving about a new feature you just launched.
That would be amazing.
Or, conversely, seeing a common frustration pop up again and again in different threads. This gives you an authentic, real-time pulse on how your product is perceived in the wild. And that insight is just invaluable. It can inform everything from small design tweaks to major shifts in your core messaging or even product direction.
That makes so much sense. It's like getting those candid, unsolicited reviews straight from the horse's mouth, basically.
Yeah.
And I can totally see how that connects to the next point, because if you're hearing what they're really feeling, you can also jump in much faster when they actually need help, right?
Precisely. It directly enables you to identify real-time support needs. Think about it from the customer's perspective. How often do people turn to Twitter or Facebook first to vent a frustration or ask for help? Sometimes even before they think about navigating your official website to find a support email or phone number.
Yeah, it's often the path of least resistance, isn't it? Just fire off a tweet.
Exactly. They might tweet about a bug they found, or post on a community forum about a delivery issue, or maybe comment on a partner's Instagram post asking for clarification about how something works. If you're monitoring effectively, you can catch these issues right as they emerge, often before they escalate into bigger problems or wider complaints. This allows for truly proactive and timely customer service. You can jump into that conversation, offer assistance directly, or guide them to the right resource sometimes before the customer even expected you to see it.
And that swift response,
Mhm.
wow, that can totally turn a negative experience around, can it?
It absolutely can. It can transform a moment of frustration into a surprisingly positive brand interaction. It shows you're listening, you care, and you're responsive.
Which I imagine is just massive for your reputation, that immediate, helpful response. And that leads us right into the idea of spotting emerging PR risks, because things can blow up so fast online. How does monitoring act as that early warning system in what often feel like a pretty volatile online space?
It's an absolutely indispensable early warning system. Think of it like having a sophisticated digital radar constantly scanning the horizon. We've all seen it happen, right? A single negative comment, especially if it comes from someone with a large following or it just hits a nerve, it can gain traction incredibly fast. It can snowball from a minor complaint into a full-blown brand crisis in like a matter of hours.
Yeah, terrifyingly fast sometimes.
It is. Social media monitoring allows for that rapid intervention. If you have alerts set up correctly, maybe for specific negative keywords combined with your brand name, or for unusual spikes in the volume of mentions, or a sudden shift towards negative sentiment, you can be notified almost immediately when something potentially damaging starts to bubble up.
So you get a heads up before it's everywhere.
Exactly. This gives you that crucial window of opportunity to address it head on, respond quickly, respond with empathy, offer a solution. Do it before it spirals out of control and causes significant lasting brand damage. It allows you to, hopefully, control the narrative or at least participate in it thoughtfully rather than just being swept away by a tide of negativity you didn't even see coming.
Okay, so it's definitely vital for damage control, for protecting the brand, but it's not all about defense, is it? You mentioned growth opportunities, too. It's not all negative chatter we're listening for.
Not at all. That's a really important point. Monitoring helps you tremendously in finding relevant conversations to join. And this is where it shifts from defense to offense, in a good way. This is about discovering organic opportunities to engage with potential customers, or even current customers in new ways, to add genuine value to ongoing discussions online, and to build a real sense of community around your brand. And crucially, this often happens even when your brand isn't directly tagged or mentioned.
How does that work if they're not mentioning you?
Well, imagine someone posts in a local Facebook group, "Hey, does anyone know a good plumber who can fix a leaky faucet fast?" And maybe you run a plumbing business.
Okay.
Or someone on Reddit asks in a specific subreddit, looking for recommendations for project management software for a small remote team. And perhaps your software fits that bill perfectly. Without monitoring for those keywords, plumber recommendation, project management software remote team, you'd probably never even know that conversation was happening just a few clicks away.
Right, you'd miss it completely.
But with monitoring, you can spot that opportunity. You can then become a helpful, valuable presence in their decision-making journey. And the key here, as we'll discuss more, isn't to jump in with a hard sell. It's about genuinely assisting, maybe offering advice, pointing them to a useful resource on your blog, or just acknowledging their need. That kind of authentic engagement where you show up to help, not just to sell, that fosters incredible goodwill and really strong brand affinity over time.
Okay, so we're listening deeply, we're identifying these opportunities, finding ways to help, and we're catching problems early before they blow up. Great. But, as a business owner, the real question always comes back to the bottom line, doesn't it? So what does all this mean for actually growing my business? How do we turn all this listening, all these insights into tangible results,
Mm.
into real customer loyalty, and yeah, ultimately into more revenue?
Yeah.
Because that's the goal, right? Turning insights into something that actually moves the needle.
That's the critical pivot point, isn't it? Moving from insight to action to results. And what's really fascinating here is how these online conversations, when you monitor them properly, and this is the crucial part, when you act on them strategically, they truly transform into genuine business opportunities. It's definitely not just about collecting interesting data points for a report. It's about taking strategic action that builds real momentum for your business. Let's start with maybe one of the biggest impact areas, building trust and loyalty through responsiveness. This is massive.
And this is where that statistic really jumped out at me from our source material. It said something like 89% of social media messages go ignored. Is that right? 89%. That's not just a missed opportunity. The article says it's a brand risk. That number is just shocking, isn't it? It feels like businesses are actively choosing to disengage.
It is shocking. And frankly, in today's world where customers expect immediacy and connection, it's pretty unacceptable. You're absolutely right. It's far more than just a missed opportunity. It profoundly damages customer perception, maybe irreparably sometimes. Think about it. When a customer takes their time to reach out to your business on social media, maybe it's a question about a product feature, maybe it's a complaint about a recent service experience, maybe it's even just a compliment they wanted to share, and they're met with complete silence. Crickets. It signals indifference. It basically tells them their voice, their issue, their praise. It just doesn't matter to you. And that erodes trust faster than almost anything else. In this digital age, customers expect responsiveness. They almost demand it. Ignoring those messages is, like the source said, the digital equivalent of just hanging up the phone on them.
Wow. Yeah. Hanging up on them. That's a powerful way to put it.
It's a fundamental breakdown in communication. And it can permanently damage that customer relationship, turning a potential advocate into someone who actively tells others about their bad experience. So the power, then, the opportunity, lies in proactive engagement. This is where you see the incredible impact of jumping into customer conversations, especially when they aren't even tagging you directly. It demonstrates this surprising level of attentiveness, this genuine care that really makes you stand out from the crowd.
Give me an example of that, the non-tagged engagement.
Okay, so let's go back to that example. A customer posts in a specific Facebook group for, say, graphic designers. They ask, anyone have recommendations for a good, affordable stock photo site for commercial use? Now, maybe your stock photo business isn't mentioned, but you're monitoring keywords like stock photo recommendations or commercial use images. You see the post. Instead of just jumping in with, use us, we're great, maybe you offer a helpful, non-salesy piece of advice first, like, hey, when choosing a site, make sure you check the licensing terms carefully. For commercial use, they can vary a lot. Sites like XY and your site name generally have clear commercial licenses, but always double check for your specific needs.
Ah, so you're adding value first, establishing expertise.
Exactly. You become a trusted resource in that moment, not just another vendor shouting for attention. It immediately builds goodwill. And the source we looked at offers a really specific pro tip here, which I think is great. Search for these recommendation posts or industry-specific questions on platforms like Facebook, Reddit, maybe Quora, or even X, formerly Twitter. The absolute key, though, and this is crucial, is to engage with helpful, relevant answers, not with overt sales pitches. Resist the urge to just drop your link and run.
Right. Be helpful, not salesy.
If someone asks, what's the best CRM for a small nonprofit on a tight budget? So a good response might be something like, that's a common challenge. Many nonprofits find success with your CRM because it offers specific features like donation tracking, mention a relevant feature. But honestly, for extremely tight budgets starting out, competitor A also has a decent free tier worth looking at. See, you're not trying to hard sell them right then and there. You're genuinely trying to assist, demonstrating your understanding of their specific context, even if it means mentioning a competitor.
And there's that quote from the source that really nails this idea, I think. You're not selling in the moment. You're showing up when people need you. That's what builds trust.
Mm-hmm.
This really isn't about the immediate transaction at all, is it? It's about cultivating that longer-term relationship, that loyalty.
Precisely. It highlights the profound long-term value of this approach compared to just focusing on quick, short-term sales wins. When you consistently show up, when you provide genuine value without immediately asking for something in return, you build this reputation, a reputation for helpfulness, for authenticity, for actually caring about the community you serve. And that trust, It's far more valuable, far more enduring than any fleeting transaction. It's what transforms a random internet user into a loyal customer. And potentially, it turns them into a powerful brand advocate, someone who will champion your business organically to their own network. It's about creating a relationship that goes way beyond a single purchase. That leads to repeat business, positive word of mouth, resilience, all the good stuff.
Okay, moving on to the next point. This one feels critical for staying ahead of the game, anticipating trends and seizing opportunities. In today's market, things change so fast, right? Consumer preferences seem to shift overnight sometimes. Having that foresight feels absolutely invaluable. How does monitoring help here?
It's more than invaluable. It's fundamental to strategic agility. It really speaks to this concept of monitor to move first, staying consistently on top of not just the big trends, but also the niche trends, the subtle social shifts happening in your specific industry or among your target audience. It empowers businesses to pivot early, often way before competitors even recognize that a change has happened.
Pivot in what way? Like product changes?
It could be anything, really. It applies across the board.
Yeah.
Maybe it's identifying a need for new product features that align with emerging customer demands you're seeing discussed online. Or maybe it's adapting your content formats, noticing that, say, short-form video is suddenly getting way more engagement in your space than blog posts. Or even recognizing completely new channels or platforms where your target audience is suddenly congregating and having relevant conversations. Social monitoring lets you see in almost real time what's working, what conversations are gaining momentum, where people's attention is shifting. It's almost like having, a slightly fuzzy crystal ball for consumer behavior and market direction.
Okay, the crystal ball analogy is helpful. Can you give a concrete example?
Sure. The source provides a really clear, detailed example. Think about when Instagram launched Stories. What happened to Snapchat's growth almost immediately?
It stalled out pretty hard, didn't it?
Dramatically. Now, brands that were paying close attention, not just casually observing, but actively monitoring things like usage patterns, engagement rates on both platforms, and the general audience sentiment being expressed online about both Stories and Snapchat, they were able to detect the early signs of that shift. They saw a gradual, maybe, but undeniable migration of user attention and, importantly, creator attention.
So they saw the writing on the wall sooner.
Exactly. And because they had that foresight, gained through monitoring, they were able to reallocate their resources, their team's time, their precious advertising dollars much earlier than others. They consciously shifted their focus and their investment away from Snapchat, which was plateauing, towards Instagram Stories, which was exploding. And the result, the source says, they won attention.
They got there first, basically.
They got there while the land grab was happening. This really showcases the tangible bottom line benefits of that foresight. It's not just about knowing what's happening, it's about having the confidence and the evidence to act on that knowledge decisively, to secure a competitive advantage by optimizing where you spend your resources, focusing on where your audience is actually spending their time and where the engagement is highest. It's about being nimble enough to catch the next wave, rather than getting swamped by it because you weren't paying attention.
Okay, and it's not just about us or trends. It's also, as you mentioned earlier, about our competitors. It's not just what people are saying about us. It's also about what they're saying about the competition. Because our competitors are out there talking, and people are definitely talking about them. That seems like an equally powerful, maybe even more powerful sometimes, source of insight. It feels less biased, maybe.
You've hit on a really critical point. It truly is incredibly powerful. Social monitoring tools provide this amazing, almost surgical lens into your competitive landscape. They let you meticulously analyze how your competitors are perceived by the market, understand the kind of feedback, positive and negative, that they're receiving directly from their customers, and identify where they're showing up online, where they're engaging, and maybe where they're conspicuously absent. It's like having a dedicated, always-on competitive intelligence team, but, without the massive overhead.
So what specifically should we be looking for when we monitor competitors? What are the actionable nuggets in there?
Right. It's about finding those nuggets. There are probably 3 specific, highly actionable things you should constantly be scanning for. Firstly, and this is huge, pay very close attention to customer frustrations with competitors that your business can potentially solve.
Finding their weak spots.
Exactly. If you consistently see a competitor's customers complaining online, maybe repeatedly, about a specific feature that's notoriously buggy, or a really obvious gap in their service delivery, or just a common pain point that their product doesn't address well, that immediately becomes a golden opportunity for you. It's like they're highlighting unmet needs in the market for you.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Let's say you monitor mentions of your main competitor and you see dozens of tweets and forum posts complaining that their software, while powerful, is way too complex for beginners to figure out. There's a steep learning curve. Now, if your software prides itself on its intuitive design and ease of use, particularly for newcomers,
Yeah.
bingo.
You target that pain point directly.
You turn their customers' pain points directly into your unique selling proposition. Your marketing messages can then explicitly highlight how your product solves that exact problem. Tired of complex software, our intuitive interface gets you started in minutes. You can directly draw their frustrated users towards your solution by addressing the very thing that's annoying them.
Okay, so it's like finding the gaps in the market that your competitors are inadvertently creating for you.
Precisely put. Secondly, on the flip side, observe any unexpected positive responses to their tactics. Sometimes a competitor might try something new, launch a quirky campaign, introduce an innovative feature, adopt a different communication style, and it just unexpectedly resonates really powerfully with their audience.
So learn from their successes too.
Absolutely. By monitoring this, you can learn valuable lessons about what's working in the market right now. For example, maybe a competitor starts doing short, really engaging day-in-the-life video tutorials on TikTok and they suddenly explode in popularity within your shared target audience. That tells you something important, right? It suggests a preferred content format or maybe a channel you hadn't prioritized is capturing attention. Now, it's not about blindly copying them, but it is about understanding current market preferences and perhaps adapting successful strategies or formats to fit your own brand's unique voice and your specific audience needs. It gives you vital clues about what the market is actually responding well to.
Got it. So learn from their wins and their losses. What's the third thing?
The third thing is to actively look for opportunities to differentiate your brand's voice or unique value proposition. By really understanding the conversations happening around your competitors, how they talk, how people talk about them, you can identify gaps in the market, or just unique ways your brand can stand out. For instance, maybe you notice their communication style is consistently very formal, very corporate, and maybe a bit stiff, and your brand identity is built around being approachable, human, maybe even a bit fun. That's a clear point of differentiation in how you engage.
You can lean into your personality.
Exactly. Or perhaps you discover they're completely absent from a particular online community or a niche platform where you know their target audience, and therefore likely your target audience, is actively discussing relevant problems or products. That gives you a clear chance to carve out a distinct identity in that space. Offer a different kind of engagement, a different tone, or highlight a value proposition that truly sets you apart in the minds of those potential customers. It's all about finding your unique angle, your unique voice in what's often a very crowded marketplace.
And there's that really powerful quote, again from the source, that just sums this up. Every missed expectation your competitor creates is a window for you.
Isn't that great? It
Yeah.
completely reframes competitive analysis. It's not just passive observation anymore. It becomes a proactive pathway for your own business growth. It's about actively seeing their shortcomings, their service failures, their communication gaps, as direct invitations for you to step in, offer a better alternative, and provide a superior experience. It turns their negatives into your positives.
Okay, let's talk about something no business owner ever wants to deal with, a brand crisis. It feels like once something negative goes viral online, once that sentiment spreads like wildfire, it's almost impossible to put the genie back in the bottle. How does social media monitoring help us protect our reputation and maybe more importantly, do it quickly? Because speed feels like absolutely everything in those situations.
Speed is the essence. You're absolutely right. And that's where this mantra from the source comes in: respond early, recover fully. It emphasizes a crucial point. Negative experiences, customer complaints, they don't always have to escalate into full-blown brand crises, but they almost certainly will if they're ignored or handled poorly. Monitoring is what allows you to catch these issues incredibly quickly, often within minutes or hours of them being posted. And that speed enables you to respond with empathy, with transparency, and with a genuine solution. Hopefully before the issue gains significant traction and escalates into a public relations nightmare that takes weeks or months to recover from.
So catching it early is key to containment.
Absolutely. And the key research cited in the source really drives this point home with a pretty compelling statistic. 95% of unhappy customers will return if their issue is resolved quickly.
95%. That's huge.
It's staggering, isn't it? Think about that. Nearly all customers who've had a bad experience, a frustration, a problem with your product or service, They're willing to forgive you, to give you another chance, provided you address their concerns promptly, effectively, and, I would add, empathetically.
But if you don't,
But silence. Or worse, a defensive or dismissive response. The source aptly called silence the digital equivalent of hanging up on them. We talked about this earlier. It sends that loud and clear message of disregard, of we don't care about your problem, and that can instantly turn a potentially fixable issue into a permanently lost customer. And not just a lost customer, but often a vocal detractor who will actively share their negative experience online, damaging your brand's reputation maybe for years to come.
okay, so practically speaking, how do we set this up? What's the recommendation for catching these potential fires early?
Yeah, the practical application is key. The recommendation is to set up very specific, quite granular alerts within your monitoring tool. You want alerts for your brand name and maybe common misspellings too, combined with a list of common problem-related keywords. Think about words people use when they're unhappy. Broken, late, didn't arrive, won't load, issue with, problem, unhappy with, disappointed, scam, terrible service, things like that.
So you create these specific listening streams.
Exactly. These alerts can usually be configured in most monitoring tools to notify you almost instantly when these critical mentions pop up, maybe via an email alert, a notification in Slack, or a flag on a dashboard. And when those alerts fire, the absolute critical next step is that swift, empathetic response. It's not about jumping in defensively or trying to argue the point online. That almost never works.
Right, don't get defensive.
No, it's about acknowledging the customer's frustration immediately, validating their experience. I understand why you're frustrated. I'm so sorry to hear you had this issue. And then, crucially, offering a clear path to resolution. Maybe that's asking them to send a direct message with their order number. Maybe it's providing a link to a dedicated support ticket system. Maybe, in some cases, it requires a public apology and explanation if it's a wider issue. But that proactive, empathetic approach, that is the absolute cornerstone of effective online reputation management today. It really can turn a potential disaster, a PR nightmare waiting to happen, into a powerful demonstration of excellent customer service. It can actually reinforce trust instead of completely eroding it.
Okay, fantastic. So we've listened intently, we've analyzed the chatter, understood the sentiment, we've spotted trends, maybe dodged a few crises thanks to early warnings. We've even learned from our competitors. Now, how do we really put all this incredibly valuable data to work? Because, like the source material hammers home, insights are only valuable if you act on them, right? It's not enough just to collect all this data and admire the graphs. We need to translate it into tangible action, into real momentum for business growth. Where do we start with that?
This really is the most important question, isn't it? It's where the rubber truly meets the road. How do we translate all these valuable observations, these trends, these nuggets of insight into concrete, actionable growth strategies for your business? Because you're absolutely right. Without action, even the most profound insights are just interesting facts sitting uselessly in a dashboard somewhere. Thankfully, the source material provides a really powerful blueprint here. It outlines 5 key levers, 5 concrete actions you can take to bridge that crucial gap from monitoring to real business momentum.
Okay, 5 levers. Let's break them down. What's the first one?
The first one, and this can have a huge impact very quickly, is to adjust your content strategy based on real user feedback. Think about how much guesswork often goes into content creation in many businesses. You brainstorm topics internally, you look at what keywords are trending maybe, you see what competitors are doing, you try to predict what your audience wants to hear about.
Yeah, it can feel a bit like throwing spaghetti at the wall sometimes.
Exactly. Social media monitoring, however, can take a lot of that guesswork out of the equation. It allows you to see directly what topics your target audience is actively discussing right now. What specific questions are they asking over and over again? What pain points are they expressing using their own natural language? Are they engaging more with, say, short, punchy how-to videos? Or are they actually hungry for longer, more in-depth articles that really dive deep into a specific complex subject? Monitoring tells you this. So, by creating content that directly addresses those observed customer needs, those frequently asked questions, those expressed interests, you ensure your content marketing efforts are highly targeted, incredibly relevant, and therefore much more impactful.
Which means better engagement.
Better engagement, higher relevance, more shares, and ultimately better conversion rates down the line because you're providing value people are actively seeking. It also means your content budget, whether that's time or money, goes much further. Your team's efforts deliver significantly better results because you're genuinely speaking to what your audience demonstrably cares about, rather than just talking at them with what you think they might care about.
So it's about creating content that people actually want to consume, not just content that fills up a calendar slot. That feels like a huge potential shift in efficiency right there.
It absolutely is. It's moving towards demand-driven content creation rather than purely supply-driven.
Mhm. Okay, the second lever you can pull is to prioritize new product features that customers are actively asking for.
Using monitoring for product development. Yes, social monitoring offers this incredibly direct, unfiltered channel for gathering product development insights. Your customers and potential customers are constantly providing feedback out there online. Sometimes explicitly, I wish your app did X. Sometimes more subtly, just by discussing frustrations or workarounds they're using. They might be talking about desires they have or frustrations with your existing product, or even suggesting entirely new features they wish existed in the market. By monitoring these discussions, looking for recurring themes, feature requests, common complaints, you can gather invaluable feedback that can and should directly inform your product roadmap.
So instead of relying solely on internal brainstorming for new features.
You supplement it heavily with real-world demand signals. For example, if you keep seeing mentions across different platforms, Twitter, Reddit, maybe support forums of customers wishing your e-commerce platform had a more robust way to handle multi-currency checkouts, or maybe better integration with a specific accounting software. That's a very clear signal from the market. Acting on this ensures that you're allocating your precious development resources much more efficiently. You're building features that customers have already indicated they actually want and are likely to use, and that in turn leads directly to higher customer satisfaction, potentially reduced churn because you're addressing their needs, and ultimately a better product market fit. It's like having a permanent, global, always-on focus group constantly active, feeding you product ideas that are already validated by market demand.
That's a huge one for resource allocation, especially for smaller teams. Why spend months building something speculative when your customers are literally telling you exactly what they want you to build next?
Exactly right. Which leads us logically to the third lever, and this is really about optimizing your efforts and focusing your energy. Identify your most engaged platform, and importantly, cut dead weight.
Okay, so focusing your social media efforts.
Precisely. There's often this immense pressure, especially for smaller businesses, to feel like they need to be everywhere. On Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, X, Pinterest, YouTube. The list goes on and on. It's exhausting just thinking about it.
Totally overwhelming.
But the reality is, your specific target audience, they aren't evenly distributed across that entire digital landscape. They tend to congregate more heavily on certain platforms than others. Social monitoring, particularly analyzing where your brand mentions, your relevant keyword discussions, and your highest engagement actually happen, allows you to see precisely where your target audience is most active. Where are they most engaged? Where are they most receptive to your type of content and messaging?
So you follow the audience.
You follow the engagement. Why spread your limited time, energy, and budget thinly across 5 or 6 platforms where your efforts might be yielding minimal returns when you can see clearly that maybe 80% of your valuable interactions are happening on just 1 or 2 specific platforms?
That makes so much sense. Focus where it counts.
Exactly. By focusing your efforts strategically where they matter most, you gain significant efficiency. It allows you to go deeper, create better content for those key platforms, and maximize your impact where it truly drives results for your business, whether that's leads, sales, or community building. It means you can be truly strategic with your most valuable resources, your team's time, and your marketing budget, dedicating them to the channels that are actually moving the needle for you, and perhaps consciously deciding to reduce effort or even pull back from platforms that just aren't delivering.
Okay, that's very practical advice. What's the fourth lever?
The fourth lever is about leveraging the positive things you find. Effectively highlight praise and influencer quotes in your marketing assets. This taps into the immense, undeniable psychological power of social proof. We trust what other people say, especially people like us, often more than we trust brand advertising.
Testimonials, basically.
Yeah, exactly, but supercharged because they're often organic and unsolicited. When you discover authentic endorsements or glowing positive reviews or maybe just really compelling quotes from satisfied customers or perhaps even from industry influencers or respected figures who mention your brand positively through your monitoring efforts, these are absolute marketing gold.
Don't just let them sit there on social media.
Absolutely not. These aren't just isolated comments floating in the ether. They are powerful, unsolicited testimonials that carry immense weight. You should be actively integrating these directly into your marketing campaigns. Proudly display them on your website homepage or product pages. Incorporate them into your sales presentations or brochures. Feature them prominently in your social media ads or email newsletters. Think about it. Authentic praise coming directly from real users is almost always far more persuasive and trustworthy than anything your own marketing team could ever write about your brand. It builds tremendous credibility and trust with potential customers who are still evaluating their options. It's powerful validation that resonates deeply.
Using the voice of the customer to sell makes perfect sense. Okay, what's the fifth and final lever?
Yeah. The fifth one really ties it all together. And host speaker, if we connect all these actions, adjusting content, prioritizing features, focusing platforms, highlighting praise back to the bigger picture, what we're really talking about here is using monitoring as the engine to create a truly responsive, adaptive, and genuinely customer-centric business model. It's about systematically using that real-world, unfiltered feedback loop from all those digital conversations happening every single moment, using it to actively drive your growth, to continuously refine your offerings, and to build much stronger, more loyal relationships with your audience. This isn't just about making small tactical adjustments here and there. It represents a fundamental shift in how businesses need to operate and compete in the modern digital landscape. It's truly about listening intently in order to lead effectively. It's about transforming all that ambient online chatter into actionable intelligence that directly fuels your long-term success.
Wow, that's a fantastic way to put it all together. It really shifts the perspective, doesn't it?
Hmm.
You don't have to guess what the internet thinks about your brand anymore. You can actually know.
Yeah.
And when you know you have the power to respond, to adapt, and ultimately to lead in your market, it really reinforces that idea of taking control of your online narrative, of your brand's perception, rather than just passively letting it happen to you. That feels incredibly empowering, I think, for any business owner out there who's looking for that strategic edge.
It absolutely is empowering, puts you back in the driver's seat, using data, not just intuition.
So as you, our listener, reflect on your own business, maybe just consider how even starting with small, focused steps in social media monitoring could begin to unlock some of these powerful insights for you. You don't have to boil the ocean overnight. Maybe just start by consistently tracking mentions of your brand name. Then perhaps add tracking for your top one or two competitors. The tools are definitely out there. Many are quite affordable or even have free tiers to start. And the insights are just waiting there, ready to potentially transform your approach to marketing, product, and customer service.
Yeah, start small, but start. And maybe for a final thought for everyone to mull over as we wrap up. In this increasingly noisy, crowded digital world we're all operating in, where every single brand is vying for attention and every message is competing for just a sliver of someone's focus, the most successful businesses moving forward won't necessarily be the loudest ones. They won't be the ones shouting the most. Instead, I suspect, they'll be the best listeners. They'll be the organizations most capable of skillfully turning all that ambient online chatter, the comments, the questions, the complaints, the praise, the suggestion into real strategic advantage. And using that understanding to build deep, meaningful, lasting connections with their audience. This whole idea of monitoring smarter, not just monitoring more. It isn't just another marketing tactic. It feels like a fundamental shift in how businesses need to operate, compete, and ultimately thrive, ensuring they're always deeply in tune with the very people they exist to serve.